Hey everybody, it's RJ, your host, and welcome to Hash It Out. In this episode, I'll be speaking with legacy cannabis advocate and entrepreneur Oliver Summers about the many hurdles and bureaucratic holdups stunting cannabis industry growth in California and what can be done about them. We'll also discuss clarifying the objectives of cannabis policy reform measures in California and on the federal level, allowing space for both corporations and legacy cannabis producers in the industry, and much more. Without further ado, let's hash it out. My guest today is a legacy dispensary operator and cannabis advocate based in Los Angeles, California. Welcome to the show, the Duke of Pico himself, Oliver Summers. Hello, sir. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Now, first and foremost, where are you joining us live virtually from today?
I am in Los Angeles right now. I am actually right on Pico Boulevard, as the namesake says.
Ah, perfect. And we were going over that nickname of yours, the Duke of Pico, right before we recorded here. Where did that nickname originate from?
My apartment that I lived on for 20 years that I actually was dealing out of was right there on Pico Boulevard. And my first dispensary was on Pico Boulevard, 3 blocks away. So I knew everybody in the neighborhood, and everybody knew me as the guy who had the first weed dispensary. And a guy was looking at me and he's like, you know everybody in this neighborhood. You're like the Duke of Pico Boulevard. And the name stuck ever since.
I dig it. So those roots run deep, man. That's awesome. That is super, super rad. I'm a stone's throw from you. I'm over in South Orange County. So yeah, if I holler too loud, you might hear me all the way over there, man. That's rad. But hey, thank you so much again for sitting down and having a conversation with me today and sharing your perspective on some of the latest trending cannabis news happening, particularly here in California for today. Diving right in here, your dispensary experience stretches back many years. As I mentioned at the top, you are a legacy dispensary operator and cannabis advocate. You have worked with firms including California Patients Alliance, Los Angeles Chai Cannabis Company in Santa Cruz, Superior Herbal Health Distribution in Los Angeles, and Summers International Cannabis Consultants. So first and foremost, just tell me about why you wanted to get into the cannabis space initially, and then wherein exactly that passion for cannabis lies.
Well, like many of us legacy people, we didn't choose to come into cannabis. Cannabis chose us. And it was the original start, like everybody, where you buy your first ounce, you sell 7, you keep 1 for yourself. And that was just the inauspicious start to most of us. And as we progressed along, a friend of mine from up north was like, I want to open up a dispensary in Los Angeles. And I was like, you're kidding me. That's ridiculous. This was back in 2006. Who would do such a thing? And he goes, but imagine this. Nobody's going to call you at 10 p.m. at night looking for a sack of weed. And you're like, really? And he's like, yeah, you close your doors at 8 p.m. and you go home. And it's like, okay, sure, why not? So in 2006, we opened up our first dispensary in Los Angeles, and it was an on-site consumption lounge, which was just fantastic. And we were robbed twice, burglarized twice, and we were shut by the DEA within a year. And it was still the best year of my life, I can honestly say. And I've been chasing that high ever since with all the dispensaries I've run. I'm still waiting to someday get back to my own on-site consumption lounge. Think Rick's Cafe in Casablanca, except it would be the Duke's. That's
I'm in it. I like that. And I mean, you mentioned that when you first opened it up back in 2006, it was already a consumption lounge, right? So you were like way ahead of the game in terms of that, because legislation for that is just starting to be implemented in states such as Nevada, and it's in the works here, I believe, in California. Is that right?
Absolutely. There are on-site consumption lounges that are in the works in West Hollywood right now. And they're trying to make it a recreation of Amsterdam there, which I'm really looking forward to. It's going to be an exciting time to see. But what we had back in the day was more of an Amsterdam cafe where you could have tea and coffee and then just buy a bowl for $5. And we had bongs and pipes and everything that you could possibly need. Whereas now they're trying to be a little bit more of this experience and a restaurants and trying to be something bigger. Whereas the reality is most consumers just want a nice little place where they can go in, smoke a joint amongst their own, and to give them that atmosphere where they can be relaxed and feel comfortable. That's the goal, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really envision that. One of my fondest memories is looking over at the couch at 420cc and seeing these like 6 kids reading the last Harry Potter book, sharing a joint together. It was like, that is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. So
That is so rad. That's actually such a big coincidence that you mentioned that, because right before we got on, I'm reading through the Harry Potter series right now. It's like my decompression. Like, I am doing exactly what you're doing. Like, I sit down with a bowl at the end of the day and I like knock out a few chapters, man. Like it's what's up. And like, I would love that exact vibe to like hit up Duke's Cafe and just like chill and vibe out. And I mean, those 2006 prices, $5 a bowl. You can't beat that, can you?
I mean, it ranged anywhere from $4 to $10 if you wanted a hash bowl. So
I'm down. I like that. I like that.
it's
Now
all
going,
about that.
yeah, totally. Now going beyond your dispensary operator work, which of course stretches back many, many years, so does your cannabis advocacy work. And that includes work with Greater Los Angeles Collective Alliance as a founder of that organization, Americans for Safe Access, Marijuana Policy Project, which is a big one, and currently serving on the board of directors for the Southern California Coalition. Now, going deeper into exactly what the state of cannabis regulations are here in California, for many, and I know for me previously, I moved to California over a decade ago, but before that, I was of the, I would say, the general perception of the state of California and metropolises, particularly such as Los Angeles, looking at them as very cannabis-friendly regions throughout the years, perhaps the most cannabis-friendly regions in the country. However, and I, of course, discovered this after I moved here, the reality is much more nuanced than that, isn't it? There was an article from Politico that came out earlier in January that says that California's legal cannabis industry is running into the same problem that many other sectors know all too well, and that is bureaucratic headaches. This comes from complicated local rules, understaffed city departments, and slow communication with state regulators that make starting a weed business in California a protracted and risky ordeal. The article particularly points out that red tape and paralyzing legal battles are stunting the market's growth, leaving aspiring entrepreneurs in cities such as Los Angeles, Pasadena, and Fresno waiting months or even years for permission to open, often while leasing empty storefronts. So, in your view, why is there all of this red tape in California when it comes to cannabis? And what, in your view, do you think can be done about it, if anything?
Well, the red tape of cannabis is it's the antithesis to the greatness of our plant that we have to deal with. Is we have to deal with all of this other stuff. Now, from my perspective, obviously we've come so very far, so I see it a little differently than most. For many years, I had a 50-50 chance of going to jail at the end of the day, simply because I was operating a dispensary. My friend Virgil Grant, who's the head of the California Minority Alliance, he went to jail for 6 years, to federal prison, for doing exactly the same thing I was doing. So the threat was real, and it was a volatile time. So in order for you to see where we're at now with the laws and the rules, you have to look to the history of some of the things that we had to deal with to get here. And while it might seem like LA is a little bit more friendly now, and California in general are more friendly, they used to do little things that were going to be de facto bans on us. And one of the biggest issues was zoning. So where you look at all the basics of everything that we're having an issue with today really comes down straight to zoning. finding a location that's compliant under the state laws and rules is extremely difficult because the city of LA and most cities in California were built in such a way that there is a church 1,000 feet within all neighborhoods and schools. So
Yeah.
you had to find these little pockets. Now they have these people in the social equity issues renting out locations. Somebody else gets a location a block away, they get the license ahead of them, and then they're zoned out of the location that they've been paying for forever. So all
Mhm.
of these situations stem from way back in the day, and a lot of it comes from people not reading the bills that they were voting for, or just Prop 64 was, we had no on Prop 64 signs all over our dispensary. And we advocated as at GLACA at the time that this is a ridiculous thing. It's not legalization like they're selling it. It's tax and regulate. And people are like,
Right.
no, no, no. You just want to have keep the dispensaries to yourself and have the pie to yourself. And we're like, that you're missing the point. Read it. Look at the tax structure that they're about to implement. It's going to be insane. And fell on deaf ears. And of course, now we're living in the problems that stem from it. So when it comes down to the red tape, everything is based in history. One of my absolute favorite stories is the city attorney of Los Angeles, Carmen Trutanich at the time, and the district attorney, Steve Cooley, back in I think it was 2011, took a can of Raid and sprayed the feet of all the journalists standing in front of them and said, "This is on all the marijuana in Los Angeles." And guess what? That was where lab testing was born from. And so all of a sudden, lab testing became necessity because of that. So
Wow.
it's this trickle down theory, if you will, or trickle up, if you will, to
Mhm.
where we're at now. You have to just follow the history over and over and over again. So the zoning, the raid issue, every one of those little things compiled into what we're dealing with now. And it's not a surprise to those of us who have been doing this for so long, but the reaction to it amongst the community is a bit of a surprise because we're like, you voted for it. Did you not read the bill that you voted for?
Right. Right. Yeah. Um that I'm glad that you bring that up. The simple act of fully reading what you vote for and fully comprehending what you vote for, I think is, I mean, I don't want to say at all that, I don't want to assume, of course, that anyone has malicious intent.
Of course not.
However, you know, sometimes, people might be relying on the voting public not reading the entire bill and just, giving you the skinny of what, you want to hear, and then count on people not reading past that headline and then just voting yes.
Or
Um,
the semantics of it, of being a yes vote means you do not want. And it was
right.
like,
Oh,
wait.
yes. Right. Yeah. Like the double negative of it all. I'm like, why do we have riddles on the ballot? What's going on with
Exactly.
that? Yeah. And just to briefly sort of take it out to a federal perspective, I feel like some of that confusion and lack of clarity on the nuance of it has sort of been seen in this cannabis opportunity, for the Chuck Schumer bill, the COAO or whatever it may be, because there seems to be confusion over, some people think, oh, this is a bill for federal cannabis legalization, whereas it's more like federal cannabis decriminalization, and the two are very, very
Exactly.
different. So, for those who may not be familiar out there, can you just sort of clarify what the difference is between what legalization looks like and what decriminalization looks like? Because they're very distinct.
Well, obviously, you hear the buzzword of the Schedule 1 versus Schedule 2 designation in the DEA. And that it's
Hmm.
where it all really comes down to. We had an interesting development, actually, just yesterday alone, that the DEA now is allowing a second party other than the University of Mississippi to do testing on cannabis. So this is a huge, huge development in our world because, first of all, I don't know if you ever saw the product that Mississippi was looking at, but it was, I mean, swag to say the least.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
Reggie.
now we're having some really interesting thing, and they're going to start opening it up to the third party scientists to do studies on it. So hopefully what will happen is if we can get it onto the Schedule 2, then we can really start talking about more of a so-called legalization. But as of right now, since we're stuck in Schedule 1, we have to decriminalize. One of the biggest things was New York. They had one of the most perfect pieces of legislation ever written in the history of this country were the Rockefeller Laws, which were one of the anti-drug laws in New York State. Unfortunately, like I said, they were perfect, and to dismantle them was years in the making. I don't know if you're familiar with Danny Danko from High Times, but he and I, when we were teenagers, we used to sit there and go, man, we're going to be like 50 when New York finally legalizes. And here I am on the year from being 50. So it's we were pretty close.
Called it. Yeah, you called it. Yeah, totally.
Just didn't seem like it was going to be like that. But
Right.
so we need to decriminalize. We definitely, as long as we have these thousands of people still sitting in jail cells for cannabis, these are the things we have to dismantle first before we can start going, okay, legalization, everybody,
Right.
and what that even means is still ambiguous, because are we talking like tobacco and alcohol legalization kind of a thing, a regulated market like that, or are we going to open it up to more pharmaceutical where you can only be able to get it at the CVS? I mean, where is the line? So we have a long way to go when it comes to that. And I can tell you that a lot of the corporate guys are fighting legalization right now because it just opens things up way too much, and they like keeping a piece of their piece of the pie right now more than anything. So, I mean, I've been told directly, we do not want legalization. So it's like, thank you for
By
actively working against us at the same time of working with us.
Yeah, that's such an interesting take by these corporate leaders. I mean, I guess it makes sense, just the whole, I don't know. I'm always wary of a corporation trying to get into the cannabis industry, whether it be from retail or from big pharma, or even a botanical company that you think might have the best interest, but may or may not have encountered a lot of botanical related controversy and litigation over the years.
Absolutely.
It's an interesting take for them to want to have a piece of that cannabis market, but then actively be against the legalization and the accessibility of it. It sounds nefarious, but I guess it's not that all surprising in terms of a corporate strategy.
Exactly. It is what they do.
Right.
It's like asking a lion not to eat. A corporation
Right.
protects their shareholders, and the way they protect your shareholders is by keeping the pie closed off from everybody else. Because once it goes legal, I mean, imagine if there are just bars of cannabis like we have alcohol bars now. I mean, that's what we would be looking at it, a cannabis truck on every corner.
Yeah, a food truck. Yeah,
Right?
yeah. Now, and it's all the more reason, in my view personally, that with the incoming of the corporations into the cannabis industry, which may or may not be inevitable, despite people, a large swath of people sort of resisting the entrance of corporations into the cannabis industry. They're so big. They have all the money. Like, if they want to come in, how can we stop them? And so, yeah, please. Did you have something
No, I
to
was
say about
saying that
that?
there's no stopping them or anything to that extent.
Yeah.
It's about working with them. Now, I have to say, I have been in the corporate cannabis world for the past few years. I got hired by a publicly traded company to run their dispensaries, and I'm finally wrapped up working with them now and everything. But I was privy to a lot of things just from all the different companies in cannabis.
Hmm.
And, it's interesting. Some of them really do have great intentions and want to do certain things. And others are like, listen, 2025, we're going to sell the company, we're out the door. And it's like, okay, fine, like we'll all still be here, but you
Right.
can go. But there are a few who are really trying and doing, and it's all going to be about merging the two worlds of the. I always say the Venn diagram is you have this corporate world in one circle, you have the legacy cannabis people in the other, and in between there's these little dots that are me and a bunch of my friends trying
Right.
to keep it all together.
Yeah.
And some of them are really doing the right thing and starting to incorporate the legacy operators. The cultivators are a little bit different simply because we have yet to figure out intellectual property on genetics, which I think is the forefront of the next step of our generation. Is because
Mm.
right now, how many sherbets and ice cream cakes and Girl Scout cookies can you smoke or see on a
Right.
shelf at once? It's
Right. Totally.
we're only looking at 5% of the great genetics that are out there. And
Yeah.
so I spent a year working with corporate lawyers and intellectual property people to really try and bring out some of these uh, great generational geneticists from out of the black market into our new. But until they can figure out a way to protect their plants, they just have no incentive to come in. But when they do, it's going to change the market altogether because
Mm.
you're going to be looking at dispensaries signing deals with these cultivators, and there'll be a drop of that strain and only at that dispensary, and there's going to be a line
Yeah.
out the door. It's the
Yeah.
way everybody goes, oh, that's just like Jungle Boys. And it's like, well, actually, that's just the way we've been doing it for decades. So,
Right. Yeah. Totally. Totally. Now, yeah, there definitely is a balance that it's a tough balance to strike, but I think it is something that is doable in the cannabis industry, and it's essential to make sure that these entities that want to enter the space don't overtake the legacy entrepreneurs and those who made up the legacy market and upheld this market before legality and brought this good herb to the people and really supplied what we needed all these years. Now,
and they
going back,
will,
yeah,
yes,
please.
please. Oh, no, I was just going to say, like I said, that is going to be the change in the market, is when that happens.
Hmm.
So even if these corporations are coming in and they take over all the dispensaries and situations, once people start realizing that they're going to be able to get their sticky, smelly OGs again from a third party market, or the specialty flowers that they're used to, like even just a basic one like a sour diesel almost, they're
Yeah.
going to lean toward. I mean, listen, I run two separate dispensaries and I still buy from black market from my friends if they have something, when my buddy grows his sage, you can bet I'm the first one in line going, let's have it.
Totally.
So,
Oh yeah, I'm all about the homegrown, man. You got to make sure you expand that network of friends. Yes,
yeah,
indeed.
and it's where the
Now,
good genetics lie. So, yes,
yes. Oh,
sorry about
absolutely.
that.
No, no problem. No problem. I'm glad you mentioned that. Now, going back briefly again to what's happening here in California, going back to that article, Political also wrote that a new group of cities has recently turned to weed to generate revenue, to fill empty spaces, or empty retail spaces rather, after the pandemic derailed local economies. But experts say it could be years before those policies translate into any real businesses, and no city exemplifies California's bureaucratic snags more than Los Angeles. The city doubled its number of available retail licenses in July 2020 after applicants sued the city following a licensing software snafu. Nearly a year and a half later, less than 15% of those have opened. Now, the article quotes Adam Spiker, who, if I have this right, is the executive director of the Southern California Coalition, who spoke about how litigation is the natural byproduct of a system that, for political reasons, severely limits the number of cannabis shops that can open. He said this is a unique challenge for cannabis operators as restaurants, clothing stores, and even liquor stores don't face similar restrictions in California, adding that if there's more desire than opportunities, you better have every single I dotted and T crossed as you go through your process selecting who wins and loses, or else you're going to get held up in appeals and litigations by those who feel like they've been wronged in the process. Political also said that state lawmakers have largely been unwilling to pressure cities to act more quickly, and a bill that would allow cities to outsource licensing functions to the state stalled this year. So my question for you then, after all of that, would be while the government continues to move at its fairly typical glacial pace, what do you think can be done on the ground level to sort of circumvent the lethargy of bureaucracy and facilitate cannabis industry growth here in California and really, I guess sort of make that perception of cannabis being, or of California being a cannabis friendly region more accurate, I guess.
Well, the cannabis bureaucracy has been a thorn of my side for almost 2 decades now. So I'm very used to a lot of these different things. Currently, the biggest problem that we have, if you ask me, is that you have all these different advocate groups, you have lobbyists, you have lawyers, and they're all representing individual ideas and individual groups. Whereas if you work together, like we used to back in the day, then you're able to change things a little bit more. So we'll take a small town, Southern California Coalition, Adam Spiker will go in there, he'll be advocating, giving them, advice on how to set things up, and they'll just start to get things going, and all of a sudden in swoops, lobbyist A and lawyer B representing the larger company or this, that. And all of a sudden things get muddied and information starts going, well, and they go, oh, you're only looking out for their interests when we need this interest. And then you have the advocacy groups that are coming in, and it starts becoming a lot of infighting. And part of that is what's hindering California from really moving forward at this point in time. The best examples to look into right now are towns like El Monte and down in the South Bay. These were places that have been working on for years, and they're, South Bay still doesn't have anything, and El Monte just got their second dispensary after 4 or 5 years. Pasadena, as you had mentioned, in Culver City. I mean, these were, when the corporate guys first came in 2018, every single one of them swore to me that Pasadena and Culver City was imminent to open. And I was like, oh, you have no idea how far away we are. And here it is 4 years later, and Sweet Flower just opened up its first dispensary in Culver City. It just goes to show how much bureaucracy. You have the social equity program, which all of a sudden had 4 or 5 different advocacy groups representing different people across the state, and no one could see eye to eye on that. And all of a sudden that became a quagmire. It's a front on both sides. So it's very easy to blame the governance of the state and go, oh, you're dragging your feet on this and you're not moving that. But at the same time, we're not doing our job as a community to bring all of us together in order to move things forward. Like I said, in 2006, it was before there was GLACA, there was ASA and MPP. And we were really there with a clear goal to represent safe access for medical cannabis patients. There was a clear goal with a singular purpose. Whereas time went, ASA and MPP, looking for the safe access, had to move, and we had to become GLACA because we had to look out for the dispensaries and how they work together. And then you start having secondary advocacy groups, and then that broke up and split into new groups. So I mean, and now we have the UCBA and the SCC, which were broken out of GLACA. So it's like,
Wow.
it's just a mess when it comes down to that. And until we can learn to be community again, which I'm a huge advocate for, because
Yeah.
that's what we are. That's what our
Yeah.
business is. It was what we built ourselves on, we were based on. And as somebody who, as I said, there was a 50-50 chance of going to jail at the end of the day. And now it's like I've been told I'm a great entrepreneur with foresight, even though I was a criminal to the city council back in the day. I
Right.
mean, we got called criminal multiple times. And now look at, and
Yeah.
I tell my 21-year-old employees who don't even know a world without dispensaries, like what it was like to walk around with your messenger bag, a little gram scale, and a thing of Ziploc bags. They blows their
Yeah.
mind. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
everything's a progression, and this is the community that we are. And I personally just feel like right now we're in a little bit of a hump of this mess of corporate structure versus advocacy, and now with the taxation fight, where
Mm-hmm.
we're just all a little bit scattered. And as
Mm-hmm.
soon as we start bringing everything back together and realize we have the greatest job in the world, we sell cannabis for a living. I I don't care what anybody says. I've dug ditches. I've done all kinds of things. This is the greatest job in the world, and it's the greatest thing you could ever ask, really. And as long as we all keep that in our heads and stop really focusing on who's going to get how much of this, that, and the other, and start working out, then we're really going to move forward. But right now, it's just a little too scattered. And like
Mm-hmm.
I said, I've been fighting a very long time, and I'm a little tired. I'm not going to lie. And these new
Totally.
groups are coming in. They're doing what they have to do. But again, we need unity. We need to get back together with what we do. And I'm the guy, though, who also says, get all the world leaders together. Let's smoke a big fat joint. We'll have world peace in 3 minutes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I think that it's so important that you mentioned that the importance of the community of it all, because I feel like that's been a through line with all that I've spoken about with my guests on this show, is that the cannabis industry differentiates itself by having such a strong sense of community. And, whether it be the bureaucratic red tape or the legislative battles or the advocacy battles or even the pandemic that has literally physically separated us, it is when we do actually take a moment to get back get back with one another, not get in each other's ways, and listen and hear one another, that we can finally move forward. And I hope that does happen sooner rather than later, because, as far as lifetimes go, cannabis has historically brought people of all walks of life together.
And
And
it's also
I certainly
it's a
hope that
new
happens.
industry. It's a new
Yeah.
industry, but it's an old business. And that's the way people have to look at it. The business has been around. I mean, back in the day, somebody gave somebody a rock and they gave them a butt of weed. And that was the first cannabis deal. So
Yeah.
it's been around longer than all of this. It's survived through so much of ups and downs over the years. And we're in such an interesting time and an interesting place right now. But it's now we have a lot of new people coming into the world of our world, and they just need to learn that you're not going to be able to manipulate it to their needs. They have to manipulate their own needs to meet the cannabis world, because
Yeah.
we're already established. We already know what we like, what we do, how we do things. No matter how many new toys or how many new, you know, CBN, CBG, extract, this, that, or the other comes out, still the greatest thing in the world will be the person who sits with their friends, rolls up a joint, and they sit and they smoke together communally as a group.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that message. That is so true. That's a great message to end the conversation on. My last question for you, Sir Mr. Duke of Pico, is what have you got looking forward to, or what are you looking forward to during the course of 2022? I can't believe we're already here.
Yeah. Amazing, right? It's
Yeah.
You know, right now we're still looking at more growth. I'm really, as I said earlier, hoping to see more genetics hit the market. I'd like to start seeing less crosses of the ice cream cakes and the sherbets and stuff like that, and start bringing back some more, like, especially as a Californian, traditional OG Kush is always welcome in my house. So it's there's just a little expansion. And as somebody who's been cultivating for 20 odd years, I can say that I've grown them all. I mean, I got the GG4 directly from Dronkers back in the day. I grew the original Girl Scout cookies. The DNA guys gave me their kosher kush and all of it. Those sherbets and Girl Scout cookies, they're like the easiest things in the world to grow. You put it under, you give it a little feed, and you're going to get 2 pounds of light, testing at 30%. OG Kush, you could give it a little water, you turn your back, next thing you know, it's hanging upside down. You're like, what did I do? And
yeah,
it's those are the plants that people want. They want that 13-week train wreck that, you know, it's like, you try getting a corporate person to grow a 13-week train wreck, they're going to be like, that means I lose a crop a year. But they're going to be like, yeah, but you're going to sell every last stem of that one. So it's a trade-off, but that's the big, for the future of 2022, I'd like to see more genetics. I'd like to see more unity, obviously, and all of us getting together and moving the business forward. But as of right now, you know, it's all about seeing people now becoming more comfortable to become part of the business and realizing that they can be in the cannabis game as a legitimate job now, which is just was unheard of back when I was and it's great. I think that if you look at the progressions in that way, that now we're just, it's, the stigma is gone. The idea that you can actually have a career in cannabis and not be considered a criminal, these are the great things to look forward to. And the more we go, the more it becomes just a regular part of life. So
absolutely. Onwards and upwards. Hopefully.
And upwards, exactly.
Yes, indeed. Well, Oliver Summers, thank you so much for sitting down and sharing all of this perspective with me. I really, really appreciate all that you've shared throughout our conversation. I sincerely wish you the best out there. Please continue to be well and stay safe. If you ever want to talk genetics, man, please feel free to come back on. I would love to have that conversation. Hey, maybe we'll catch each other on Pico sometime soon.
Absolutely. Everybody knows where to find me. The Duke of Pico's on Pico, one way or another.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Love it. Love it. Oliver Summers, everybody. That is it for Hash It Out, y'all. Thank you all so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. I am your host, RJ Balde, and we will catch you in the next one. Peace out. Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking out our channel. Click here to watch another episode of Hash It Out. To find more cannabis industry reporting, insider stories, and to stay up to date on the latest trends, make sure to subscribe and keep up with our Trichomes community app. Download it now for free, and we'll see you there.